But the Gemara is trying to understand. We have many different understandings in the opinion that says that a sukkah higher than 20 amot is focusing on the reason, which is the reason of Rava. So Rava says, Mehacha, in the art scroll, to a, what is it? 2A3. Rava said from the following post, the following pasuk, Succah. The Torah says, I want you to sit in a sukkah for 7 days. It says that when it says 7 days, so the Gemara's understanding at this 7 days, that's the type of structure you should sit in. Now, a 7-day type of structure, the Gemara, is 7. So, being that that's the case, so says Kol Shivat doesn't say the word taduru, doesn't say to live in the sukkah the way you live in your house. Meaning your sukkah is supposed to become like your house. You know, you should spend your time in the conversation in the sukkah, eat in the sukkah, sleep in the sukkah. Say the word to dwell in the sukkah, which means it's not like your home in the sense it's not a structures. That's how the of dwelling. You're leaving temporary. So Omra Torah, the Torah says, Kol Shivat Hayamim, all 7 days, Rat Keva, leave home, permanent type of structure, a living that's more permanent, the Dirat Arai, and dwelling. Like we said last week, an idea from Moshe Feinstein, the idea of this, that's one of the lessons that we should get out from. The idea is after a person brings in all this, it's called a Chag Asif, it's the time that you bring in all your, people might start getting very, forgetting that this rule is only 120 years, so therefore we say at this time period specifically, to go in a more of a temporary type of living, so you should temporary. That's some of the ideas of why to leave one. There's nothing wrong, and really it's nice. I know Rabbi Heinemann from Baltimore, he has a nice wrong that you know, like your house, you have a steam, but at the end of the day, you're out there over there. Okay, so the Gemara says, we are on A3. Ad esem ama odem oseh diroto dirat arai. Amot, that's the way a person makes his a more dwelling. However, Lamaila Mesem ama, something that's higher than 30 and 40 feet, if it's higher than 30 or 40 feet, when you that's high, that's that high, you make it a more permanent type of walls and eladirat kava. That's the type of structure that's made in a more permanent way. You are not fulfilling Sukkah. The mitzvah of Sukkah is Basukot Teshvu Shivat Yamim. A 7-day type of dwelling, a temporary type of dwelling of one home. And therefore, the type of Sukkah that fits that bill more than 20 amot. That's a more permanent type of dwelling. And the walls are strong, the foundation is strong, and that's not the type of item that the Torah is talking about. So that is the reason why he says that higher than 20 amot is not good, okay? It's missing in being a temporary type of dwelling. So Amalei Abaye, so Abaye challenges this. Elameata, if you're telling me, the way I understand that you're saying is that the issue is it has to be a temporary dwelling, not a permanent type of dwelling. So a samachitzot barzel, if you made a sukkah and you made it within the 20 amot, you made it lower than 30 to 40 feet, but you made the walls out of iron. And you put the schach, on top, but the walls were walls made out of iron. Or like today, there are certain places that they have walls of like a walls of a house. They make a room in the house. When they build the house, they make it that the roof comes off. That you have, that becomes that's your sukkah. Good morning, Mr. Haber. So that are some people have such a thing. So the walls are really walls that are permanent walls. They're real walls like you have for a house, but the ceiling comes off. So you're going to tell me, are you going to tell me that if you make iron walls and then you put schach on top, it's not a sukkah? We know every day that's a kosher sukkah. We know there's no problem. You could have powerful walls, real walls made out of the materials that general walls are made out of. As long as you put schach on top, there's no problem. As long as it's lower than 20 amot. So you can't see, if you're telling me that a sukkah, the way Abaye understood Rava, is that the problem with higher than 20 amot is a permanent type of structure, and it has to be temporary, and therefore less than 20 is temporary structure. But we see lower than 20 is also made in a permanent way. It's made with iron walls, and we say it's kosher. So we see that that doesn't seem to be the reason. It's not because it's more of a permanent structure, more of a temporary structure. Because if that would be the case, so why is a sukkah less than 20 amot if it's made from iron walls made out of steel? We say that it's a kosher sukkah. If the issue is it has to be temporary, iron walls are not temporary. Iron walls made out of iron. It's made out of iron. It's not temporary. So that's the Gemara's Rava's challenge, Abaye's challenge to Rava's reasoning. So it must be that the reason why a sukkah higher than 20 amot is not kosher is because maybe you can't see the schach very easily, and you have to know that you're in the sukkah, or maybe because some other reason that the Gemara said that maybe you're not in the shade of the schach, you're in the shade of the walls, but not because of the issue of the permanency of the sukkah, because we see that you can have a permanent sukkah, you can have walls made out of iron and it's still kosher. That is the challenge that Abaye has to Rava. And we'll look inside the language of the Gemara. Amalei Abaye. Abaye says to Rava, Lama'ata asam mechislu shel barzel. If he made the sukkah with walls out of iron and he put schach on top, are you going to tell me it's not a kosher sukkah? We know all the time people are making such a sukkah, right, Mr. Haber? They make sukkahs with very strong walls. We have no limitations regarding the walls of the sukkah. On the contrary, the wall has to be a wall. It has to be something that's not that a wind can't knock over. It can't be something that's flimsy. That, like we spoke about the canvas sukkah, right? The canvas sukkah walls, you have to make sure they're sturdy, that that they don't flap, that they don't move back and forth. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a cloth. It's like what I'm saying. You see it. It's like the pop-up sukkah that a lot of times the pizza shops have. That they use this type of material. When they rope it down or something.
Really roped in properly then. even though it's just cloth.
Right, then it's a wall. If it stays sturdy, if it's this canvas looking and that wall stays sturdy, it's kosher. Okay, that's it. You understand? We understand that's a temporary type of structure. But we know you can make the walls out of whatever any type of materials you want to make the wall out of. And the foundation to keep the wall up is no problem. You can make it out of the best foundation for the wall, the best material for the wall. It's good. So how would Rover explain his opinion? Who says that, you know what? The reason why you have to be lower than 20 amot is because it has to be more of a temporary. That's a more temporary type of structure. So the Gemara answers Amalei. So Rava responds, you didn't understand what I meant. This is what I went to say. Morning, Ilya. We are on 2A3. Until 20 amot, the Adam oseh dirato dirat arai. It's no when until 20 amot. If I ask you, if I tell you to build something that's a structure that's temporary, right? What is that? Now, I'm not telling you it has to only be temporary. This is how some explain the Gemara. I mean, to say that you're going to understand how to make a structure, a 7-day structure, exactly 7 days, is very hard to be able to figure out exactly this is going to be a 7-day structure. So the Torah was not saying that it has to be a 7-day structure and no more. When the Torah says, I want you to sit in a sukkah, it's not that the Torah, and I want you to leave the Sukkot Teshuvah to get out of your house. The concept of the Torah, what the Torah says, this type of dwelling that I want you to live in should have the ability to be, it should be ability to be a temporary dwelling. And it also has the ability to, if you want to make it a permanent dwelling, within that ability to be temporary, if you make it permanent, I'm not telling you that dwelling is not kosher. If you make that dwelling more in a permanent way, as long as you are within the area and the realms of making this a temporary dwelling. So therefore, if you go ahead and you make something up to 20 amot, you are in the norm of something that could be done in a temporary way. It could also be done, you want to make it a stronger material. I'm not telling you, it has to be just, it only can last that temporary, that 7 days or whatever. But it has to be something that is common, that's done in a way that can be temporary. That's the lesson that you need to know. The fact that you need to know that there's this concept of temporary dwelling on Sukkot. How are you going to know that when there's a cap? When I cap you and I say there's a limitation that you have, you can't go higher than 20. Why can't I go higher than 20? Because it has to have an ability to be the normal opportunity to be a dwelling that's made in a temporary way. And something that's less than 20 amot, is normal. It's the norm. Something that's less than 20 amot to be more of a temporary type of structure. It could be temporary, but if you make it also in a permanent way with iron walls, it's not going to make it invalid because you're still capping the structure at a height of 20 amot. So the message is clear. The message is clear that this is a concept on Sukkot of a temporary dwelling. And so whether you make it out of iron walls, you don't make it out of iron walls, it is kosher, as long as the cap is there, as long as it's within 20 amot. And therefore, that's why there's no problem. You could have walls that are made out of iron, but you know that you have to stop at 20 amot because it needs to be within the dimensions that it's common to make a temporary dwelling as well.
Rabbi, 20 amot is how many feet?
Between 30
What's
and
the conversion?
20 amot, it's a minimum of 30 feet. It could be it's between, it could be 40 feet, because an amma is anywhere between 18 inches, which is 1.5 feet, and 24 inches, which is 2 feet. Yes, Mr. Haber. Again, but the question is, you need, if you start at 15 feet, what did you do? What happened between the ground and 15 feet? Permanent space. What do you do there? How do you fill up the first 15 feet? What's your structure, Mr. Haber? You build 5 feet or 10 feet, right? You were 20. You got the 20 amot high. And then that was, so the question is, that first 5 feet that you built, it was a permanent structure. But again, as long as it's within 20 amot, we said, as long as the wall is not higher than 20 amot. If you take a measuring stick from the ground where where the wall is, you see, is that considered a wall? If you make this platform, you might have extended the ground. That might make you have to see that you might have made a ground higher. You have to see how we translate that platform. If the platform, when you make a platform, you make it something thicker, but you have to know within, how we measure from where you're standing, if it's serving as a wall or it's serving as something that you're just standing on. So if it's something that you're standing on, then you just extended the ground. You made the ground high. But if it's serving as a wall, then as long as that comes within 20 amot, not higher than 20 amot, you're good. We have to see your case, exactly what. Good morning, Mr. Silverman. Okay, we're discussing over here, what is the idea of Rav's explanation why a sukkah higher than 30 amot is 20 amot is not kosher. So now let's read it inside the Gemara on Beizam and Aleph 2a. So he says like this: Amale hachi kaminallah an esim amah. Rav is responding. Rav is responding to the challenge of Abaye. By the way, if you know, in the Gemara, it's Rav and Abaye. They were like Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. They were constantly, not constantly, but they differed in many issues. And the halacha generally follows the Gemara that follows Rava, except there are certain exceptions. It's called the Yal Kigam. It's like acronyms it stands for different halachic issues, but generally the law follows Rava. What? In that sense, like Hillel, generally the law follows Hillel, not Shammai. So this is the explanation of what I mean. An esim amah, until 20 amot, the adam oseh dirata dirat arai. That is common, that you make a dwelling up to 20 amot in a temporary fashion. It's common. So the fact that you made it permanent does not ruin the sukkah, because you were within the dimensions, the height of something that could have been done and people make permanent structures, temporary structures. So if you made it permanent in a dimension within the height that people make a temporary structure, that's a kosher sukkah. The other Moshe dirata dirat arai, that it's common that you make temporary within 20 amot, because that's the norm. You can make it with temporary within 20 amot. So then, even if you made it with a more permanent way, you made iron walls, but as long as you capped it within 20 amot, so the message is clear that this is sukkah is something that's done there's some temporary aspect to a sukkah, because you'd say, well, why can't you make the sukkah higher than 20 amot? Because it has to be something that has the ability to be commonly made in a temporary fashion. So we got that message that you need to leave your dirat keva. There's a concept that sukkah is you have to leave your permanent dwelling and be in some sort of temporary type of mindset, which has the ability to be in a temporary type of dwelling. So, however, but if it's one Simon, but if it's higher than 20 amot, the Adam oseh dirata dirat keva. The norm there is that you don't make something temporary if it's higher than 20 amot. When you need to make something higher than 20 amot, the foundation has to be a much more permanent foundation. The higher you go, you need a stronger foundation. So the foundation has to be stronger. The walls are generally strong. The norm is to make something, when you're making something, right, Simon, higher than 30, 40 feet, higher than 20 amot, the norm is the concept of making it in a permanent fashion. So even if, let's say, you were this amazing architect and you figured out how to make walls that could stand, that are not permanent walls, even if it's higher than 20 amot, right? You were a great, you went to Cooper Union College and you took architect, you took design, and you came up when you were able to figure out how to make a temporary structure from, even though it's going to be higher than 20 amot, it's going to be a temporary structure. But that's not the norm of how you make a structure higher than 20 amot. The norm is when people, the general public, when you make a structure higher than 20 amot, is a more permanent type of structure. The walls are more permanent. To be able to have walls stand less than 20, higher than 20 amot, generally you need to make a more permanent type of structure. So even ki avid leidir darai nami lo nofi. Even if you make it in a temporary way, this structure higher than 20 amot, it is not kosher, because the message of a temporary dwelling needs to be something that's commonly made, that has the ability to be made in a normal way in a temporary fashion. But since this is not the normal thing that you make in a structure higher than 20 amot, generally you make it in a more permanent way. So that is not so the Torah is very makbid. The Torah wants you to make the height of a sukkah should be the height of something that has the normal ability to be temporary. And therefore higher than 20 amot, which is not the normal height of a temporary structure, is not kosher for a sukkah. That is the reason of Rava, of Rava. Now the Gemara, now we're turning the page, Mabruk. We're turning the page now on 2b. Beis Amid Beis. Cool. Now what the Gemara wants to do now is to try to understand. We have three different reasons why a sukkah higher than 20 amot. Correct, Mr. Silverman? Three different reasons why the sukkah is not kosher higher than 20 amot. The Gemara is trying to understand what compelled this rabbi's opinion more than the other rabbi's opinion. You heard the other rabbi's opinion. It's not like you don't know of the other rabbi's opinion. You're having a discussion. You're having rabbis offering different reasons. Why did you feel, what did you feel was the hole in the other rabbi's opinion that you didn't feel that is the proper explanation and the compelling reason for the law of the Mishnah? We have the law of the Mishnah. The Mishnah makes a statement. A sukkah higher than 20 amot is pasul. If it's higher than 20 amot, higher than 20, 30 or 40 feet is invalid. And we have three different reasons in this Gemara of why is it invalid, right? Trying to understand the reasons. And by the way, based on the reason will come law, right? Reason, Mr. Haber, what was that line that you always like to say? Law, source, and reason, maybe? Law, something. There was a case, law, and reason, maybe the case. Based on the case and the law and the reason. So based on the reason could be, if you understand the reason is A, then a certain law could come out. If you say the reason is B, a different law could come out. So you have to understand, it's very vital to understand what is the law, reason for this law. So the Gemara says, Kulo kirabba lo amri. All of the rabbis did not want to say Rabbi's reason. What they weren't satisfied with Rabbi's explanation. Rabbi was reason number one that the Gemara had offered last week. He said that the Torah says, "L'man yedu doratechem." The Torah says that we want the generations to know, Ki basukot hoshafti es bnei Yisrael. I want you to know, the Torah says, I want you to sit in a sukkah, and by the way, it's brought down in halacha that here, the reason for the mitzvah is vital. Some say it's so vital to know and have that in mind when you're performing a mitzvah, right? For it, when it, let's say take lulav and etrog, right? The Torah did not tell you a reason why you should take a lulav and etrog. The Torah says take a lulav etrog hadasim haravot. So when you're doing the mitzvah, you have in mind, I'm taking a lulav and etrog hadasim. I'm doing the mitzvah. Hashem commanded me to take the lulav etrog hadasim haravot. But I didn't think about me. There's many reasons in the Midrash talks about maybe the etrog refers to etrog first, it's like your heart, and that ravot is like your lips, or whatever. There's different explanations what the symbolism, what it's coming for, what it's all about. But here the Torah says, I want you to sit in a sukkah because I want you to know that when you came out of Egypt, you were sat in these. You were these clouds of glory that protected you. So therefore, in halacha, it's brought down, you should have that in mind when you sit in a sukkah. When you sit in a sukkah, I always like to say in the sukkah, L'man yedu doratechem. You say those words when you're in the sukkah. And by the way, that's why before you enter the sukkah,
L'shem Yehud. You say L'shem Yehud.
You say L'shem Yehud, like Mr. Silverman said. In the L'shem Yehud, that before you go into the sukkah, it says, you go into the sukkah, there's something to say before you go into the sukkah. That's very important because it reminds you that concept, you go into the sukkah to fulfill the mitzvah and to remember that Hashem placed clouds of glory that protected us by the heat of the day and the coldness of the night. You're supposed to have that mindset when you are in the sukkah. Not just I'm sitting in the sukkah because God tells me to sit in the sukkah, but the reason for why I'm supposed to sit in the sukkah. Baruch haba Daniel, welcome. So that is the mindset of sitting in a sukkah. So now the question is, this rabbi said that, Rabbi said, you know what it means, L'man yedu doratechem? That the generations need to know. So he said it means that you need to know that you're sitting in a sukkah. He said that it's not just about the fact that we need to go ahead and remember that God placed us in these clouds of glory, had these clouds of glory that protected us. But he says what we need to know is we need to know that we're in a sukkah. We need to be cognizant on a regular basis while we are in the sukkah, Simon, while we're sitting in a sukkah, standing in a sukkah, we need to know that we're under schach, that we need to know that we see the schach. We see that we're in this temporary dwelling.
In the old time, the Sukkah was there. The Sukkah was the chuppah for the couple. That became their house. They had the chuppah, and then they would put the walls on it, and that became their house. And it was like a Sukkah. And it's like we do Shiva Berachot on Sukkot with Hashem, that we marry Hashem in the chuppah of the Sukkah. And we have Shiva Berachot, and the Edim and the visitors are the Ushpizin, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov.
Beautiful.
Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov.
Yeah. Beautiful. We welcome Yosef. Beautiful. So now, but Rabbi said there's an additional idea. You need to know you're in that protection that Mr. Silverman spoke about. You need to know you're under the shade of Hashem, so to speak. That schach, that temporary dwelling. You need to be cognizant of that. And if it's higher than 20 amot, if it's higher than 30, 40 feet, your vision that you see doesn't really, the general vision goes up to 20 amot. You don't generally see higher than the 20 amot. So therefore, when you're standing in a certain place, so therefore the sukkah cannot be higher than 20 amot. So it comes back to how they say we don't agree with Rabbi's explanation that you have to be cognizant at all times that you see that your vision generally will see the schach, because hahu yedil doroti, when it says you need to know, it's not referring to that you need to know that you're in the sukkah. You need to see the schach. Rather, who yidiel dorotu. That is telling the future generations need to know the man yedu dorotechem. You need to know that Hashem placed us in these special clouds of protection. Not that you need to know that you're the schach is on top of you. It's not referring to you. You knowing that you're in the under the schach, that you see the schach. It's rather what you need to know, that what Hashem did to your ancestors. So that's why they didn't accept Rabba's opinion, and therefore they felt that based on Rabba's, they felt that that pasuk of L'man yedu Toratechem would not invalidate a sukkah higher than 20 amot, because as long as you know that you know about the idea that the Anani HaKavod, that Hashem protected us when we came out of Egypt. That's what the Torah is asking you. Torah is not saying that you need to be cognizant constantly, that you have to be within a area height that you can see the schach on a more regular basis. That's not what the Torah is telling you. That's why they disagree with Rabba's understanding. Now, Rabba himself, the way Rashi explains on Beis and Aleph, he says that Rabba says both things are learned out from the pasuk. Even though the Rabba understands that that's what the literal meaning of the pasuk is, that you need to know that what Hashem did to our ancestors, what He placed them in these sukkot, clouds of glory, that He protected them by day and by night. But it's also alluding to the idea of L'man yedu. You need to know that you're in a sukkah. So Rabba understands that the pasuk is teaching us both points. Point number one, you need to know what Hashem did to your ancestors, how He protected them, and you need to know, like, do you know where your children are? Do you know where you are? You need to know that you are in a sukkah. You need to be cognizant of that on a regular basis. And that's only going to be happening when you have the sukkah lower than 20 amot, where your vision, what do you call it, peripheral vision, whatever your vision on a regular basis, you see that's the normal height that you will see. According to Rabba, it's both. Rashi says, Rabba understands that the pasuk, there's the pshuto shel mikra, Rashi says, the simple translation of the pasuk, which is referring to knowing what Hashem did to our ancestors, protecting us by the Anani HaKavod, but it's also coming the drasha. There's also, like we have Pardes, Shat, Remez, Drush, and so the drash is L'man yedu. You need to know, even the present generation needs to know that you're there. If you look at the Rashi on Beis and Aleph, if you want to look back, Rashi says it so eloquently. The Rashi is L'man yedu. The headline of the Rashi, that's the real headlines that we should be focusing on, not the headlines of everything else. It's called the Dibur HaMatchil. L'man yedu. The first word of the line is yedu. It's about 10, 12 lines before the wide lines of the Rashi. You have it? Mr. Safdie has to go down about 3/4 down. L'man yedu. The first word of the line is yedu. You got it. Asay sukkah. Hashem is telling us, make a sukkah. Chag ha-sukkot ta'aseh lacha. You have to make a sukkah. Asay sukkah sheyishivata, that it's sitting it's dwelling. When you are dwelling in the sukkah, it's nikeret lacha. It's recognizable to you that when you are sitting in the sukkah, you are seeing you see that you're sitting in the sukkah. You recognize, you see the schach. Not that when I'm in this room right now, right? I see a ceiling. I need to be in a room. I need to be in a type of structure that I see schach. That it's clear to me that I am in the sukkah. I don't forget where I am. Don't forget where you are. The ksiv yedu. You need to know kiba sukkot hoshafti siviti leishev. Ksiv yedu. You need to know kiba sukkot hoshafti siviti leishev. You need to know that I've commanded you to dwell in a sukkah. That's how That's how he's going to translate the pasuk. But Sukkos Teshu Shivat Yamim, Laman Yedu. So so how we're translating the pasuk? You need to know Kiba Sukkos Hoshafti. You need to know that while you're dwelling in a sukkah, that I commanded you to be in a sukkah. And how are you going to know that? You're going to know that if it's less than 20 amot. Because if it's less than 20 amot, you are going to be cognizant that you were told to sit in a sukkah, to sit in a temporary type of dwelling. Okay, we're going to continue tomorrow with the other opinions in the Gemara. So we explain why they didn't accept Rabba's opinion. But what's wrong with what's Rav Zera's opinion? What's the other opinions? We'll see tomorrow. TBC, to be continued. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank everybody. Welcome Daniel Oyev Shalom back. And honored to see him. Okay, have a great day, everybody.